I'm doing the thing. Yeah, we're a little bit late. A few technical problems. I'm not the one to go to for technical issues, but I think we've resolved it. The old restart the computer. So anyway, for those watching, thank you for your patience. Look, I guess last week's discussion with Deb was really informative and exciting to chat all about our volunteer program and the 130 or so volunteers that we have. But today, I guess I'm excited to have two people with us, two incredible people in the M&D community, Sarah Solomon and Sarah Barratt, formerly Wilkie. So I got it right there, Sarah. And yeah, look, I'm really excited to have them both with me. I think I've asked the two to come on for a particular reason. I think we've both got a bit of a unique and unfortunate connection to M&D, but I also really wanted to highlight the important work that M&D Victoria and Calvary Healthcare Bethlehem do together. But firstly, I thought I'd introduce myself a little bit, which I haven't done so far. A lot of people who know me would know my story, but just in short, I joined the team at M&D Victoria nearly 3.5 years ago, whilst my dad was living with M&D. He had a 12-year journey with the disease, and obviously prior to me joining the team, I knew how important the work of M&D Victoria was, simply because they were there for Dad and our family, and provided all the amazing services they do for all Victorians living with M&D. I was also, just like all of our fundraisers, I was a community fundraiser, and I helped organise a netball tournament that would raise nearly $10,000 for the association. But Dad lost his battle with M&D last February, 15 months ago. But my passion for what I do has certainly never been stronger. You might ask why I'm telling you this story now, but I'm telling you that story because both Sarahs that we have tonight have a similar story. And as I said, it's one of the reasons I wanted both to join me tonight. They will touch on those personal stories, but yeah, we have this bond that so many people in the M&D community have. It really sucks losing a loved one to the horrible disease that is M&D, but to know you're surrounded by so many amazing people that have been through the same thing, and they simply get it. That's a very special thing. As mentioned, the other reason I wanted both to join me at the same time tonight, along with the personal connection the three of us have to M&D, is I thought it would be a great opportunity to highlight the fantastic and very important relationship M&D Victoria and Calvary Healthcare Bethlehem have. Many Victorians living with M&D would certainly know all about Calvary Healthcare Bethlehem and obviously M&D Victoria, but the collaboration between the two organisations is critical in the care and support provided to so many people living with MND. Both Sarahs will discuss that in a lot more detail a little bit later, but I thought I'd introduce the two Sarahs first. I did say to them earlier in the week that I thought I'd get all my talking points out first because I won't get a word in later. I first met Sarah Barratt in my first couple of months in the role. Sarah joined our first ever major adventure challenge in 2017, which was the Great Wall of China, and it was a huge success for the organisation. And I think all the participants who came with us had a brilliant time and got a lot out of it themselves, and all of whom were connected to the disease. Fast forward a couple of months following that trip, a couple of jobs at M&D Vic came up, which Sarah applied for and fortunately got, but she can talk about the two roles that she's had so far a little later. Sarah takes part in many of our fundraising events. On top of China, she joined our Lara Pinta trip in Outback Australia last year. Sarah, he's no stranger to all our fundraising events that we do. She does enjoy a good house party to raise funds. She's probably got a glass of red now. Well, in fact, I know she does. But yeah, she's done a brilliant job, not only working for the association, but for raising many, many funds along the way. But yeah, you might wonder why I'm a little bit hesitant saying Barratt. It's because I'm not used to the name change. I was fortunate to attend her wedding just before this pandemic really started. So Wilkie is now Barratt. Sarah Solomon. She's very unique. She's also a very clever human, and she could also be described as very, very loud. And I say two varies deliberately. Through her OT role at Calvary, she knew my dad quite well, long before I worked at M&D Victoria. I first had communication with Sarah Solomon back when we were promoting our Great Wall of China trip in 2017. She was in, and then I didn't hear back. Turns out she's a very busy person, but Sarah has finally committed to that Great Wall trip and will join us when we head there for another fundraising trip next year, 2021 in September. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can go. It's actually been postponed from this year. This year. Year 2021, China, Great Wall. Can't wait. I actually first properly met Sarah at the international conference, M&D conference in Perth late last year. And yeah, you certainly don't forget once you've finally met Sarah Solomon. I'll pass over to Sarah from Calvary now, so she can talk all about what she does and how long you've been doing what you do, and your personal story to M&D, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. I feel it's a privilege and a pleasure to be here talking to you guys. I've been an OT for 25 years. Don't tell anyone that. And I started working at Bethlehem in 2007. I'd always worked with people with prog neuro conditions, but I think at that time I probably didn't quite understand kind of the difference for people with M&D. I had worked at an M&D clinic at King's College Hospital in London in the late 90s, but it was a very different world than it is now. So I kind of fell into this job at Bethlehem, and I suddenly had an epiphany that I think this is the best job I've ever had in my entire career. It seemed to make so much sense to me as an OT. And just the privilege of helping people in this really challenging time of their lives. And it just stretched every OT sort of theory that I had about living life and doing what you want to do. And everyone's different, and everyone has different goals and different needs and different families and different things that are important to them. And it was my job to help people to be able to do that, no matter what it was. So yes, I've been there for 13 years now, and that's still my favorite place to be, my best job I've ever had. And so the kind of weird twist to my story is that in 2011, my mum, who lived in Western Australia, so I grew up in Western Australia in the bush, came to visit. And it was the first time she was taking my daughter back to WA to have a little holiday with her. And she was walking away from me in the airport, and I noticed her foot was doing something funny. And, you know, I kind of didn't think about it very much. But being an OT, I kind of went, oh, it's mum walking like that, a bit weird. Anyway, it could have been a whole numerous things. Anyway, over the course of that year, it became pretty quickly evident that I knew what was going on, because she was in Western Australia. It kind of added another layer of challenges, and I racked up quite a few frequent flyer points in that year. But her diagnosis came probably 14 months after that initial symptom. It took that long to get diagnosed. She was in a rural and remote community. So for those people living in rural and remote communities, I totally understand some of the challenges that brings to this sort of situation. She was diagnosed officially in April 2012, and she passed in September of 2012. So I did spend quite a lot of time looking after her and, you know, helping actually the team down in the rural community that she worked in. Rod Harris, who was the CEO at the time, was, you know, M&D Victoria was like, Sarah, let me know if there's anything you can do. And, you know, I had contact with M&D Western Australia, who work on a different model, but they were equally as supportive. And I have to say the team down in the community that my mum lived in were amazing. So I came back to work, and so many people asked me, you know, how can you still work here after that? And it was interesting because for me, it was more like, well, I'm even more dedicated to this now because I've lived it. You know, I've been the daughter as well as the therapist. And I don't often tell people, it's actually only been in the last few years that I've said it publicly. Many of my people that I work with, it's not something that I share because it's not important, but it's interesting how sometimes people will say to me, oh, it's like you really understand, or it's like you kind of know what we're going through. And so, yeah, this is the first time I've probably shared it in such a big forum, but it's been like nearly 9 years since Mum died now, and I'm still at the clinic and I still love it. And yes, part of me going to China was to finish my mum's legacy. She always wanted to go to China, never got there for whatever reason. So I thought maybe I can go for her. And at the same time, raise money for an amazing cause and talk about how someone from Calvary and the team from M&D Victoria are still working together, because I know the money that I raise that would go to M&D Victoria is fundamentally probably going to be used by me for my people that I work with at the clinic. So it just shows how much we work together all the time. Excuse my cat.
We can't wait to have you in China.
Yeah, I can't wait for China.
It'll be pretty cool.
So that's my story.
Love it. Other Sarah.
Yes. Well, thanks for the intro. So I guess my journey with MND and MND Vic began just over 4.5 years ago now. My dad was diagnosed with MND and he passed away not long afterwards. He had a very quick progression. So from diagnosis, my parents actually lived up in Brisbane at the time. So I guess we didn't really get to see those signs or those symptoms. So when we got a call to say, you know, your dad's potentially got MND, I mean, for us, me and my brothers, we were quite shocked. And I think like a lot of people who, they don't really know what MND is. Like I had no idea what MND was until someone, you know, said my dad had it. So I guess like anyone whose life's affected by this disease, or anyone who's lost someone to MND, or anyone who's actually lost anyone for that matter, could agree that your life just completely flipped upside down. You know, I was on a completely different path in life. I had a different career path. I was in the police academy, so very different to what I do now. But my perspective on life just completely changed when my dad passed away. And like, you know, Sarah and Daniel have said, I just had this passion inside that I just wanted to do more for people living with the disease, for families who are affected by it. I wanted to use my own experience, even though it was horrible, you know, worst experience of my life. I wanted to change it and use it as a positive. So yeah, I did a lot of fundraising, and then I signed up to China. As Daniel mentioned, the first overseas trip, the challenge trip to China. So signed up and went there, and I met so many beautiful people who were affected by this horrible disease, and met Daniel. We got talking, and he, you know, spoke about working for MND and kind of what that looks like. And ever since he said that, I was just like, yeah, this is it. Like I have to. So job came up, and I got the job. So I was information and resourcing officer. So I was in that role for 2 years, and I've only recently just moved into this MND advisor and support coordinator role. So far the role's really great. It certainly has its challenges, but it just makes the reward so much better. It's such a rewarding job, you know, working with these amazing, incredible people. They're so resilient, so positive. I honestly like drive home at the end of the day, home, and I have a smile on my face. Like I'm just content content with where I am, and I've honestly never looked back since my first day at MND Victoria.
We can end it there, I reckon. What happened? Yeah, look, from my point of view, I think it's a privilege to be able to do my job surrounded by people like Sarah and everyone in the MND community that work in the MND community are brilliant people. But just to go that one step further and have that personal connection driving the passion is incredible. And as Sarah says, I think both Sarahs, we definitely love going to work each day, and that's a special thing to want. As mentioned earlier, well, I might get Sarah Solomon to talk a little bit about what Calvary Healthcare Bethlehem is, what they specialise in, and then we can talk a little bit about the work both organisations do together.
So Calvary Healthcare Bethlehem is classed as a level 5 statewide provider of people with progressive neurological conditions. Our medical director, Susan Mathers, has been working with people with MND for 30 years. She realised that a multidisciplinary model of care for people with MND and other neurological conditions was, really the way forward to allow people to live with the condition. The clinic has really grown over the years. We now run 5-day-a-week clinics. We have an inpatient ward. We have the contract for the community palliative care service in our area. So as a level 5 clinic, it's a health-funded clinic, so there's no cost to go there. It's staffed by a full complement of allied health, neurologists, specialist nurses, respiratory, and it's basically the sort of one-stop clinic for people with MND. The other thing we do is lots of education and assistance for therapists and palliative care staff and nursing staff out in all over Victoria, also Tasmania. And there's some people in southern New South Wales that come to our clinic, and sort of also the east side of South Australia. So we do also sometimes work with MND New South Wales and South Australia, plus the MND Vic regional advisors that are down in Tas. And we are the ones that help people, I suppose, navigate the medical decisions that they want to make, the allied health decisions. Most people will also have an allied health team based wherever they live, especially with the change in how disability is funded now. But a lot of our job is to help navigate when someone needs something. They'll come into clinic regularly. We've moved to video conference a lot at the moment, but that it's generally, our hospital is set up, like the OT and the physio department is a bit set up, and speech and dietetics, as a kind of information shop for people with MND, because everyone has different lives. And I feel often my job is about giving people options to work out what they need. And so we've set it a bit up like an independent living centre for people with MND. We have everything that is from the MND Vic Loan Library for demonstration, because the difference about working or seeing someone who's just been diagnosed with MND is that they're going through a roller coaster of emotions. They might not even know a service like MND Victoria exists. They don't know how things happen, where things come from. And so often the first time I meet someone, and other therapists at Bethlehem will kind of, I think, say the same thing, is it's not necessarily about going through a big assessment or, but it's just saying, we're here. And my first question is often, have you heard of MND Victoria? Has anyone told you about MND Victoria? And I'll do kind of, a little show and tell about sort of some of the services they can offer. If they haven't registered, I'll do a registration, or one of the nurses might do a registration. And then I'll get in touch with Jeanette and just say, look, this person's, just registered, these are the details. Bethlehem, as part of their service, do something called a shared care plan, which, because often people get a lot of information in these sort of big clinic appointments. And I know from my personal experience, even with a medical background or an allied health background, I wouldn't remember what people told me. And so we say to them, you don't need to remember it all, and we write it all down, and it gets sent out, but it also gets sent to MND Victoria, and it gets sent to any of the other services that are available for them or people that they're linked in with. And I think that connection between Bethlehem and M&D Victoria has been there for years. We've been working together for so many years. The changes in health funding and disability funding have changed the way things work, but fundamentally we're still like this. I literally know the M&D Victoria office number off by heart. I have everyone's emails on speed email, and a day does not go past that I don't speak to at least 3 of the advisors, or Kathy and David in equipment and Sandra in equipment, literally all the time.
It would take all day to talk to 3 of us.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so I just like to say that I love working with M&D Victoria. The services, I could not do what I want to do without them.
Tell me a little bit about what you do as an OT. Like, for those that don't know Sarah, I know a lot do. Sarah is very good at what she does. I know from afar, I look on at OT more because there's no rules. It doesn't seem like there's no written rules on how to work with someone with M&D.
Yeah, look, there's no rules. Some people, I always talk to, when I do educations for OTs, you know, OTs and sometimes physios want the rules. They want the rules, they want the pathway, they want the what to do. And I often will say there's no rules. You just got to dance the dance with people. And don't assume that people know what they need, because they don't know what they don't know. So it's our job to provide options. And the number of times I say, just want to let you know that this thing exists if this happens. We don't have a crystal ball, but there is different things for every situation. I suppose one of my personal kind of passions has been the electronic assistive technology side of things. So using eye gaze to control a computer, to be able to talk, or to get on an email. I think there's also no rules when it comes to that, and not everybody wants that kind of technology or needs that kind of technology. But one of the things that I've done at Bethlehem over the last sort of 8 years with the team that I have there is build up a library and a demonstration room of electronic assistive technology, because I don't think you always know when someone wants to look at that stuff. And often they'll come into clinic and they'll start saying, what about if I can't? What about if I can't do that? And I'll, you know, often take them into the tech room and just say, look, there is options. There will never be a time that if you want to control your computer, that you can't control your computer. I will ensure that you can still do what you want to do. I can ensure that you can go on Insta or Facebook or whatever you want. So
yep.
I think that's something that I've really kind of, I see the difference in the quality of life it makes for people living with M&D. And I think, you know, Dan, your dad, is testament to that.
He did like, he liked his technology and liked trying to be one step ahead.
I still use the video that he made for us in most of my presentations.
I'm sure he'd be very honoured. He did put a bit of work into that. But
yeah, amazing.
Other Sarah, tell us a little bit how, obviously I know you're new in the advisor role, but as Sarah said, that M&D Victoria and all our support services work so closely with Calvary. So tell us about you and your connection to them, and what a day would entail for you working with someone with M&D and the link between both organisations.
Well, I guess, like you said, I am pretty new in this role, but if I go back to like our info, so I was in the information and resourcing team. So I was there for like 2 years, and my the coordinator, Alison. So we, I guess that essentially that first point of call sometimes. So someone might ring in who's just newly diagnosed, or it could be their wife or husband calling on their behalf. So that's kind of where that role was, what that role was like. And we did a lot of education as well. So we did the information nights for newly diagnosed people, and education to health professionals as well. But as a M&D advisor, yeah, like Sarah said, like we're constantly in contact with the Calvary team, because it's more of a one-on-one client. You know, I have like a client caseload now. If my client goes to sees the Calvary team in clinic, or, you know, they might go and see Sarah, you know, Sarah's straight on the phone to me, like filling me in, keeping me up to date. We kind of share that, yeah, like, you know, that information sharing, just so we're on top of everything and we're providing the best support and care to that person and their family as well. So I look after the southeast area So I look after Monash, Kingston, Greater Dandenong, and the southern part of Bayside. So I think currently I have about 36 clients. And yeah, like even literally as we were about to come live, Sarah and I were talking about a client. I haven't met them yet, but she was literally just, giving me all this information, and it's just, yeah.
Literally registered her today after her first appointment.
Yeah. So we're, like Sarah said, we wouldn't be able to do what we do if it wasn't for the Calvary team. Like, we just complement each other so well. Two different organisations, we do different things, but I like to think that, one and one, we're there together for a reason. So yeah, that's, I guess, I don't know if Sarah has anything else to add, but
as our little motto is in the background here, until there's a cure, there's care. And both organisations, M&D Victoria and Calvary Healthcare Bethlehem, has been made very, very clear, work hand in hand, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do if it wasn't for Calvary, and vice versa. And my role in the fundraising supported development team, it's really, really cool to see these, the two organisations so close. And I'm filled with great confidence knowing that the funds that are raised by all our amazing supporters are funding these critical services and all the equipment that Sarah Solomon was talking about before, that ultimately it's the allied health professionals like Sarah that it's making sure the equipment suits the individual need. And it's all well and good to have a wheelchair, but we all know that every case of M&D is so different, and every wheelchair might need to be adjusted slightly or piece of...
One of the other things I want to say is that I haven't been an OT for 25 years over a couple of states in Australia and a couple of different countries, is that the disability funding has changed so much over the years, and it's really people with M&D have really never fitted well into any of the models of funding for kind of services, equipment provision. And part of the reason why the M&D Victoria Equipment Loan Library started was because the statewide equipment program, that was what we used to have to use long ago, used to take 6 months to get a shower chair and a 12-page report. Like, it was bonkers. And so the M&D Equipment Loan Library exists because M&D Victoria advocated to the government that people with M&D don't fit into the model that they had created. And so for me as an OT, that has been a huge benefit for people living with MND, that I can ring the girls at the equipment service and say, I've just seen someone, they've been, kind of wondering if they need something's changed, and it can literally be in their house in a few days. Like, that is spectacular as an OT to be able to have that service, available to my clients, because it is a gold standard, I think, in terms of service provision for people living with MND. And I know that other areas in the world do not have that kind of service.
Yeah. No one, wishes upon their worst enemy to have MND, but to have the care that we have in Victoria is really, really special, and
really special.
It's a credit to both of you and your teams that you work with to keep providing that care and support. So, look, it doesn't look like we've got any questions, so you must have answered all them in your little points that you've covered. So, thank you for that. We don't have too much more. I thought we might just touch on next week. Next week is a huge week on the M&D calendar, being M&D Week, M&D Awareness Week. Starts on Sunday, and every year M&D Victoria put on a Day of Hope, but obviously due to the current situation, no one can attend an event. So we are putting that live on Facebook. It'll be similar to this, except we'll have some of the best researchers in the world presenting from our office, and that will be live streamed on Facebook on that's on Tuesday morning. No, I've got this confused. Day of Hope service of remembrance on Sunday morning, midday on Sunday. which is normally at the town hall. And then ask the experts is on Tuesday morning, which is where the researchers will be coming to our office. Bradley Turner, one of the finest researchers in the world, will be presenting with two of his colleagues to the masses, hopefully. Both events are easy to tune into. Just log on to our Facebook page, just like this. And along with those two major events for MND Week, a lot of you would have seen Australia Moves for MND, AM for MND. It's a very exciting new fundraising campaign that we've got up and running this week. As you know, we can't have any fundraising events, and our fundraising dollars have dropped off significantly since coronavirus started. So if you're interested in getting active in your own home, in your own neighbourhood, and raising a few dollars that goes to the work that you've heard about tonight, jump on board, www.amformnd.org.au. I know Sarah Barratt has got her own team with a couple of advisors, and I think it's open to anyone, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's called Burp, Lunge and Squat. Get on it. So we've decided to do 500 of an exercise a week. So I'm doing 500 burpees, and we've got Fran and Sam who are doing lunges, sit-ups. But we actually recruited Lisa, who lost her husband Peter to MND, and she has decided to do 600 squats a day.
I'd just like to say that I got an email from Fran just today about this, and I have yet to respond.
So she's done amazing. She has raised, well, I reckon it'd be at almost $3,500 now in 24 hours. So
amazing.
Hats off to her.
Absolutely. So yeah, AM for MND is the first time all state associations have come together to put on a major fundraising event. So it's very exciting that we are all working together. And yeah, it's a difficult time for individuals, but also charities and organisations like us. So yeah, every dollar raised is so critical. So yeah, jump on board, and it's a bit of fun, if anything else. So I think that'll do for tonight. So thank you, Sarah and Sarah. Next week, back at the same time, hopefully 7 o'clock, and hopefully no technical problems. But we will have Beck Mason, who is one of our favourite fundraisers and best fundraisers, and yeah, we all love Beck down in Portland. So next week will be a bit of fun as well.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sarah, and good night.
Good night. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.